Seahawks fans, wherever you may be. Welcome back for another edition of the Seahawks Playbook Podcast. Join your host, Bill Alvstad, and co-host, sports writer and football analyst Keith Myers, as we talk Seahawks football. Hey, Seahawks fans. Welcome back to another edition of the Seahawks Playbook Podcast. I'm your host, Bill Alvstad, sitting down with Keith Myers. We're here to discuss the post-game preseason game 2 against the Bears at home, where Seattle had dysfunction in all three phases of the game. And we're here to celebrate what we can celebrate. There'll be a lot of silence. And then we'll talk about all the dysfunction. And we'll try not to get too, depressed about it. We'll see how we do. How you doing, man?
I'm doing all right. It's that game was hard to watch. It was really hard to watch.
I understand you had some physical labor this morning, just to kind of help ease the mind a little bit. Yeah,
I got to work on a deck, which sucks, but it's good to have it done.
Did you finish?
No, it's not completely done, but I got done with a coat, and so it needs to dry, and then I'll do some more tomorrow.
Nice. Yeah, that game was hard to watch. It was kind of crazy. I just kind of sat in disbelief at just how poorly it felt, like the Seahawks just were not at all ready to play a football game. And there's only 3. And you spend the entire offseason kind of getting ready, mentally getting ready, and you've completed 3 weeks of in-person practices, and you're kind of gelling as a group, and then you show up and you do something like that. It just makes you question the entire operation. I get it. Fans are kind of upset and all that stuff, but the reality is it's a preseason game. There were probably a total of 18 out of 22 starters sitting on the sidelines, and those that did will start, played 4 or 5 snaps in this game, and that was it. So very little impact whatsoever.
But the same was true for Chicago.
Mm-hmm.
So this isn't like, Seattle played their second team and Chicago had their starters out there.
No question. Yeah, no question.
I mean, it was equal, and the Seahawks looked terrible in all 3 phases of the game. And I don't think there's a better way to put that. They were absolutely anemic on offense. They could not do anything. The penalties were everywhere. Coverage on defense was a struggle. They couldn't get consistent pressure on the passer, and special teams was an absolute disaster. So, yeah. I mean, there's very little positive to say when you look at the overall picture of that game.
Yeah,
now,
I agree.
With individual players, there is some positives to be said, but on the big picture, man,
there's 2 positives to me as you look at it as the big picture. If I'm Pete Carroll, I had a whole bunch of people sitting, and this game doesn't mean anything in August, and it's a learning experience. If you treat this as a learning experience, you've got this whole thing. I don't know how much blame you can put on Pete Carroll. I don't know how much blame you put on the individual players or individual coaches or whatever. It was abysmal, no question about it. But the takeaway is it is a learning experience. It is August. It's not October. And so there's something to be said for that. The other thing is the positive that you can take away too is hardly anybody of any consequence really played significant time in this game. Really. I mean, there were a handful, and we'll talk about those players. But it's just so hard to equate a loss this bad, as holistic as it was, as dysfunctional as it was. It's hard to pin this thing on how it's going to turn out and results that you're going to see in September. Yes, some of it will translate. We can talk about Geno Smith. People are making excuses for Geno. Hey, we had so many drops. We couldn't get we couldn't get anything done. There was no consistency, 3rd down conversions, etc., penalties. However, with all that said, here's the thing about Geno. He had an opportunity here to set himself apart from Drew Lock. All things being equal, good quarterbacks really good quarterbacks will overcome some of these deficiencies and have the ability, have the athleticism to generate something, to transcend all the awful and pick out the parts that you can change and have an effect on. And he just doesn't do that. He doesn't have the ability to do that. Let's be honest. He's a great average backup quarterback in the NFL. And teams are comfortable putting him there for a reason, because he's conservative. He doesn't like to make mistakes, but he's not a transcendent quarterback. He's not going to generate any plays with his legs. He's not going to generate any plays with his arms. He's just going to be a placeholder. And that's the way it looks when he's out there. He just looks like he's a placeholder. He's very conservative. He checks down on everything. He allows the mistakes that will happen to any offense overcome any ability he has to get beyond that. And so, if you play mistake-free football in all three phases of the game, with the exception of Geno, you got a real good shot at winning games. If there's anything going on, with penalties or turnovers that are out of his control, or the defense isn't playing well, getting off the field, it's too much for a player like Geno to overcome. That's why I think this team would be wise, very wise, I believe, to go with a player like Drew Lock. Now, Drew Lock is going to give you the same sort of issues as far as holding your team back, more mistake prone, but he's also going to give you just that little bit extra that could give your team a chance to overcome some of those deficiencies in other areas by making a big play, by stretching the field, by having some explosive plays in there. So for me, that would be the tipping thing. Geno did not help himself in this game. It was
not
just
at all
an average performance or lower.
It was lower.
Yeah, and it went with everything else. I get it. The hand was the whole thing was against him in this game. Nobody was helping him. There were lots of drops. The wide receivers had drops. People were out of position. You had penalties on the offensive line. Charles Cross, was excellent in the first game. This game, he was excellent when he was playing and pass blocking and run blocking. But those penalties, five false starts and a holding penalty at the wrong time, made it so that it was more difficult to create sustained drives in this game. It set us back, and that one holding penalty after, I think there was Penny Hart had that 41-yard completion. 2 plays later, Charles Cross has the holding penalty, and now we're 2nd and 20, and Jason Myers went on to miss the field goal in that situation. So these things are just really hard to overcome. Like you said, all 3 phases of the game, it was so hard to watch. I went ahead and watched it anyway, Keith, because I did want to see the individual performances, and we can talk about that, because I think overall there's really nothing to take away from this game other than what I mentioned, and then maybe some individual performances. But it's one of those things where you just burn the tape.
Let's just start with Geno, and I think that if you making excuses for Geno it's not doing you any favors.
It's disingenuous
because he hasn't played well, and I think that needs to be said. He is 20 for 33, which is barely 60% completion percentage. His
over 2 games.
Over 2 games. And his yards
2 scoring drives out of 16?
Yeah. And his yards per pass attempt is 6.5, which is way below anything that would be acceptable in the NFL.
Yeah, you got to be close to 8 or you're not moving your offense.
Yeah. So, I mean, you can, talk about drops or not having guys or whatever, but in the first game, he had all day to throw and couldn't get the ball downfield, couldn't do anything, couldn't move the offense. You want to look at the drives in which Geno has been the quarterback. Here's how: 5 plays, 22 yards, 3 plays for 8 yards, 8 for 57 and a field goal. Yay. 4 for 15, 9 for 61 and a touchdown, his only touchdown. 3 plays, 5 yards, 3 plays, 7 yards, 4 plays, 31, 6 plays, 36, 6 plays, 31, 3 plays, -12. There's been one touchdown drive and only 2 decent drives in a full game, playing against a lot of backups. He's been calling him pedestrian, I think, is being generous.
Yes.
And I think that doesn't mean that Locke is substantially better or anything like that, but call it like it is. Geno is not an NFL starting quarterback. We knew that before this season, and we know it now. We have all the evidence that we need this season in this offense with these players to know that he's not going to be the guy that gets it done.
Right.
So last show, you and I talked about how Locke missing this game was essentially giving Geno the starting job.
Yeah. Putting him in the front runner seat, no question. But he didn't go out and take it.
He didn't do anything. And to me, his performance at this point forces the Seahawks to start Locke next week. Because you have to find out if
Locke got ahead in this race by sitting on the sidelines having COVID and being sick as a dog at home. That's how bad Geno's been.
Yeah. So, Jacob Eason in some ways outperformed Geno Smith.
Now, Jacob Eason has some dog in him.
You could just
see that he had kind of a junkyard mentality. He was going out there, a little reckless now and again with his throws, but at least he was trying to make the throws. He was trying. He was trying to get the team to rally for something.
He threw the ball downfield. He had a touchdown by Whiteside get dropped. He had a touchdown by Fuller get dropped. He pushed the ball down the field, and if that was Lockett and Metcalf, those are easy touchdowns. Now, his stat line isn't any better than Geno's. I don't want to say that it is. I mean, it's pretty bad.
Less than 50% completion percentage with like a 55 overall quarterback rating type of.
It's also bad, but the offense looked like it might score.
That's the difference between a Geno Smith and a Jacob Eason is what you call moxie. Like there's just an intangible quality about a guy. Now Locke had it in the first game too. They're statistically almost. You could look at them and say, well, they were almost even. But when you looked at the eye test of Drew Lock, he's a completely different type of quarterback than Geno Smith. And Jacob Eason had a little bit of that as well.
Yeah. So the knock on Drew Lock when he was in Denver was that he wouldn't take the easy completion, that he would not take the check down even if it was there, and he would hang in the pocket, take a sack, trying to get the ball downfield, and he would only throw deep passes. Has Geno Smith thrown a deep pass?
Well, he's tried. I'll give him that. He's tried a couple of times. He had a drop. I think
Bo Melton
Derek Young in this game had a drop, and then but Penny Hart had that one down the sideline that I thought was the best play of the game, and it was Geno's throw. But I'll say this consistently, what I've seen, and now we've seen a full game of action with Geno Smith. He throws behind players. I'll give him another one too, Keith. I'll give him one more. He had that one to, was it Bo Melton or no, Freddie Swain on about a 35-yard crosser over the middle. Freddie Swain stretched out and dove for the ball. And I don't know how Freddie Swain did not land a single finger on the ball, but it went right through his arms from about 30 yards away. And if that's completion, you give that to Geno too. So there are some mitigating factors. I will say this. When you add up all those penalties at really difficult moments, and you add up the drops, and you give those all in favor of Geno, no penalties, all those receivers make those catches, you sustain some third downs there. Maybe this does look a little better in Geno's favor. I will give him that. Nonetheless, he didn't do enough to overcome what he did have to face. And that's, I think, where I'm having an issue.
Yeah. I think that what you've got to see is you got to at least see something else. The answer is not Geno. So get Locke out there. If the answer is not Locke, fine. But
unfortunately, we may not find out.
It's not Geno, right? So you've answered that question. He's not the guy. So go try and find the guy. Now, all of this, every bit of it points to Jimmy Garoppolo getting signed if he ever gets released, because
yes,
that's what
he's
Pete Carroll's
clearly
waiting for.
better than these two guys.
Yeah.
Now, I don't know if Drew Lock is going to get a chance, Keith, because he's so sick.
Well,
came out reports today that he's just sick as a dog with COVID.
Yeah.
And if he's that sick at this moment, he's got 8 days to recover and test negative. That's a big lift, for anybody, let alone a pro guy that needs his lungs and legs to play in the NFL.
Yeah, I hear that. It's hard because I just don't see. I don't see an answer, and we knew this coming in, right? This isn't a surprise.
We may be in a situation, Keith, where just by default, if Drew Lock can't go next week, the Geno starts the year as their starting quarterback, and they may end up having to make a quarterback change in week 1 or 2 or 3 or whatever. And that's just the way it's going to be.
And then if Lock goes out there and fails,
there's no other options really.
Then you go back to Geno. How does that work?
Well, I don't think that you can. I think once you go away from Geno, you've got to go out into the quarterback market and see what you can do. Maybe a trade for Gardner Minshew, or who knows, right? Who knows?
Mm-hmm.
I don't know.
I mean,
here's my problem. Is I think John Schneider and Pete Carroll have done a fabulous job turning this around from February 1st until now, given the trade and the draft and all that stuff, free agency. But if there's a failing, and every year it seems like there's one position that's kind of, you go into the season kind of washy, and there'd be middle linebacker this year after the starters, it really falls off, and quarterback. They went into the season, they appear to be willing to go into the season with these two guys. They've had all off season to kind of figure it out, and they elected not to get into the trade market, this summer. And now Garoppolo is hanging out there. I don't believe that San Francisco is going to go into the year with Jimmy Garoppolo guaranteed to make $25 million sitting on the bench. It doesn't make any sense for that franchise whatsoever.
Schottenheimer said specifically that he won't be with the team at one point. So that's not going to change. They've given his agent a chance to go look for a trade, which means that he can talk to teams about contracts and all of that, which might be what's gone on here, is that he's talked to different teams like Seattle and knows what the contract market's going to look like when Garoppolo gets cut. So when he gets cut, I don't expect it to take long to sign because his agent's already been talking to teams.
Yeah, there's 2 teams, I think, in this market. Houston and Seattle right now. That would be it. The kid from Stanford, I can't remember his name right now, for Houston.
Miles.
Miles is the guy in Houston, and he's a second-year player, and he's had some up and downs apparently this summer in camp and then in preseason so far. So they may pull the trigger on something like that, but I don't think they're ready. That roster to me is less ready than Seattle's roster, and I think Jimmy would probably fit here just given the offense. You know what I mean? Okay, so let's talk about
through 2 games. There's only one team worse in the NFL in terms of point differential. Want to guess who?
I have no idea.
It's Jacksonville. Seattle's at -23. Jacksonville's at -27. So,
yeah. All right. So let's talk about.
There are 2 teams at -13 that you and I both think are serious playoff contenders, but that's a different story. Anyways.
Let's talk about the bad first, and just get it out of the way. Charles Cross and the penalties. What was going on there?
We were saying, with him and Lucas on the other side, there's going to be growing pains with rookie tackles. There's going to be mistakes made. There's going to be times they get in their own head. There's going to be that kind of stuff. It's rookie growing pains. You see it with every player, no matter where they're drafted. Better that they get it out of the way in the preseason than wait for the season to start. But this is going to happen. We saw in the first game, he has the ability to be dominant.
Is that that's a mental thing, right? Is when you get into that headspace where you're false starting so many times.
Yeah, it really is, because basically what's happening is he's He's trying to anticipate. He's trying to do his job, and his brain's just not clicking with the right timing. And
and that makes it harder too when you've got two quarterbacks in camp that are sharing reps and all that kind of stuff.
Oh yeah, I mean, they both have a different cadence. They both have a different pace. Between different the different calls, the different sets of things that they have to go through. And so if you're used to going on a certain beat and they slow down, or the next person's slower, you're going to jump and you have to adapt. He didn't adapt. But again, he's more, I think at this point, more worried about, getting the right play call, getting the right stuff, doing the right little things physically, that stuff second. And he just needs to work through it, calm down, slow down. He'll be fine.
Otherwise, played really well. As far as the play is concerned, he played well. 13 penalties accepted against the Seahawks in this game. Yeah. 3 others that were declined. That's 15 total penalties. Yeah. Chicago had 3. Yeah. So it was just completely okay. Drop passes. What's going on?
Not good players trying to catch the ball.
Freddie Swain, Tariq Young, Melton all had drops.
Yeah.
They're pretty good players. I mean, Freddie Swain played really well last year. Tariq Young and Melton, I'm going to say, are rookies, and they're, maybe the moment's bigger, too big or whatever.
Yeah. And Freddie Swain has been hurt and has practiced once in the last 2 weeks, and he's out there trying to play at full speed. And you've got, Fuller had one that he dropped. Is Fuller going to make the roster? Doubt it. Right?
Tackling. Talk to me about tackling.
Now that's a problem to me. I mean, again, you've got guys playing huge minutes at middle linebacker that aren't going to be on this roster.
Yeah. And that's all over, really.
Yeah. And so there's some of that, but Marquise Blair was a guy who missed a bunch of tackles.
He also made a bunch of tackles too.
Yeah, but he missed a bunch of tackles. He
even said he missed 5 or 6 tackles.
Yeah. And so that
they have him down as being as leading the team in tackles for this game,
which means he was around the ball all over the place,
which is encouraging. I would say more encouraging than not. I mean, those tackles. He's not played for a long time. I'm going to give him a little bit of a break.
Yeah, but I'm just saying, you have guys in position to make plays and they're not making the plays, but they're also not guys that are going to be playing. Are we concerned? Well, it means the depth isn't as good as we thought it was. Or they're
or they need to work on it more in practice. And here's the deal. I have a problem in the NFL in practice because teams are, isn't like it used to be. Back in the day, people used to hit each other in practice, and it used to be pretty darn physical, and you were ready to play a football game on Sunday. Now, you had some injury concerns out of that, yeah, but at the same time, you were ready to play a physical brand of football. It's not like that anymore. These guys barely hit each other in practice, and they kind of go through the motions, and it looks like they go through the motions in the game, too. They're just not mentally ready. I think it'll be better once the season starts. A couple more things that I thought were negatives. Special teams, Keith. K. Johnson's muff, Jason Myers' missed field goal, Justin Coleman stepping on the end zone line on a great punt, bad tackling on the returns, allowing big returns. What's going on with special teams?
I don't know. I mean, I know you end up with, they have guys trading positions and you're like, hey, I want to see this guy, running as the third guy from the inside instead of being all the way on the out, just because that's more likely where he's going to end up in the regular season, even though it's not where he's been practicing. And so they move people around, and guys weren't staying in their lanes. They're trying to make plays. Justin Coleman's a vet. You can't make mistakes like that.
That was difficult to watch. I just couldn't believe it because he was so confident because he was down there early, right? So he sets himself up, and then he takes a step backwards while the ball's still in the air, and boom, he catches the ball. That would have been brilliant. I mean, it would have cut it on the half-yard line. It would have changed the complexity of the game right there. It would have helped to kind of turn the tide a little bit.
He played bad on defense, too.
Yeah. He played an entire half in the nickel slot coverage before Kobe Bryant even saw the field, Keith. That was kind of weird.
And Kobe Bryant was the better player in this game. Well, in the first game, too.
I mean,
Kobe Bryant is looking good.
Coaches do snaps for weird reasons, this time of the year. So I'm not. Kobe Bryant's going to be the guy that's getting the snaps. Last thing, third down conversions. We are awful at third down conversions. Like we stepped on ourselves with penalties. We ran into, the scheme wise, we had the calls, and then Geno Smith checking out of plays, throwing the ball behind the yards to gain that he needs. I mean, it just in 2 games, it's just awful. I don't know how to correct it.
You correct it by getting a better quarterback, because yes, the penalties sucked and it put them behind the sticks, and it's hard to convert third downs when you're always in third and long. That's not really on Geno, but at some point you have to make some plays. If it's 3rd and 8, you can't complete a 3-yard pass.
Yeah,
you've got to stand in there,
and
you've got to deliver.
3 times. They had screens set up 3 times that were behind the line of scrimmage that they sniffed out easily and caught us and putting in a punting situation. All right, I'm done. Let's burn that part of the show and burn the tape from the game. Let's talk about some good stuff. Running backs. It seems like we can run the ball this year with a variety of different types of running backs, and our run blocking is great.
Yeah, Darwin. What's his last name? Thompson. Darwin Thompson looked good. Like that hurdle over a defender for a first down. That was fun. Yeah. But that wasn't the play that it wasn't like, oh, see that he can be here. It was that he was grinding the ball between the tackles. He was reading his blocks. He was putting his foot in the ground and busting upfield when a guard would seal. He was doing the things that you expect for a guy that's gonna be the 4th or 5th running back. And
they didn't have a lot of attempts. I mean, between him and Travis Homer, they had 11 rushing attempts in this game. Travis Homer and Thompson combined had 78 yards rushing and a touchdown.
You said 11 attempts and 78 yards.
Well, and Travis Homer though had 30 of those on one run, which looked outstanding, I thought.
But still, that's still like a 7-yard average. It's a 7-yard average.
It's unfortunate that we fell behind so much we didn't get a chance to run the ball more.
One of the reasons why we're really good at running the football this year has been Abe Lucas, which is kind of surprising given that I'm not sure we ever saw him run block in college.
Right?
Like what, three run blocking play? No,
he's a physical beast, it turns out.
Watching him drive guys into the ground has been really entertaining. He finishes blocks as well as anybody
in this game.
Yeah.
And he's got a kind of a nastiness to him and physical. Does. And it's crazy. It's like, if he doesn't start, Keith, I don't know what's wrong with this team. Now, Curhan is a great player and whatnot, and maybe he needs to have a really solid look inside, maybe with Damian Lewis. I don't know. They might give that to who's the other fellow?
Phil Haynes.
Phil Haynes. They might give that to Phil Haynes. I get that, but it doesn't dissuade me from saying Abe Lucas needs to start from day one at right tackle, because I think the sooner you commit to that, the sooner he goes through his growing pains, and that team and that offensive line becomes solidified.
Yeah, I'm with you. I think he's
earned
the future.
It too.
He's the future right tackle. I think if they get 6 weeks into the season and Cross has an ankle injury and has to miss a game, you move Lucas over and you start him at left tackle, because he's got franchise left tackle feet also.
Yeah. I feel more confident at him at left tackle than any other player on this team. Forsythe
didn't look good in this game. He got beat around the edge a lot.
But I'd feel more comfortable putting him at the right tackle spot if I needed to. How about Kobe Bryant? Kobe Bryant had a couple good pass breakups. Again, he didn't start until the beginning of the third quarter, but when he was in there, he was really aggressive. And it's good to see a player like that really just feel natural and make plays in the preseason. When nobody else around him was making plays. Nobody else was a couple of
inches away from a pick six too.
And tackling, he had 5 solo tackles as well, not a missed tackle. So he was one of the bright spots, I thought.
And, I would give Tariq Woolen a nod there too, because he played much tighter coverage. He looked better. He didn't have the big mistakes that he did in week 1. He definitely had a bounce back game. I'm still not saying he's ready to be a starter.
Week in practice too.
Yeah. Like I said, I'm still not going to say he's ready for, starter playing time or anything, but he definitely bounced back and looked better in this game than he did the week before.
Positive. Damian Lewis went out with that injury on the cart. You just thinking the worst. It turns out he's got a lateral sprain. He could be ready for week 1.
Anytime you see the cart and the air cast, that typically means broken and or broken dislocation, surgery, and out for the year. That air cast is never a good sign. And for him to just have a sprain that he might be able to, sit out, rehab, rest, be back by week 1 or week 2, that's huge. Because we were thinking he's gone for the year, and
that would ruin our depth. So it's like I get that we feel like our offensive lineman, Phil Haynes in particular, and Curhan can come in and duplicate anything our starters are doing, but it's a little different. Damian Lewis is a really decent blocker, and so it is nice.
You go from being 7 deep on the offensive line to being 6. And when you're playing 5 guys, that means you're 1 injury away from not having a legit player to come in for you. And so, getting Lewis back is a big deal. Like that was a good piece of luck for Seattle, that we know that he's not going to miss the whole time.
And in general too, the offensive line in general in preseason so far has been probably, I would say, the brightest spot. The most surprising part of preseason that I didn't anticipate, because we were told, like Pro Football Focus had us ranked dead last, and take it for a grain of salt, whatever. Dead last preseason as far as the offensive line strength. And coming out of that first game, they had us ranked first in the NFL after week 1 in preseason offensive line play. And I don't think we did anything to change that in this week.
Well, we did in terms of the penalties. The penalties are gonna kill Seattle in terms of that. But I mean, when you've got all these guys, the Seahawks have 2 starters that have never had an NFL snap. So how do you rank that? Do you know what they're going to be in the next level? So I don't put any stock in their that preseason ranking, especially because the guys that they did know about include Lewis and Jackson, which are both very good players. So for them to say they were the worst team is kind of dumb. But I also wouldn't have put them first. I mean, you got 2 rookie tackles, and no matter how good they look in one game, they're gonna have games like the one yesterday where they make a lot of mistakes and have penalties and kill some drives, and they've got to settle down and catch up to the speed of the game.
Pennyhart, we mentioned him earlier, but had a nice catch, that 41-yard completion, which was great. And he had a special teams tackle for a loss. He was the first guy down the field and made that play. Miles Adams played well, I thought, in this game at defensive tackle, had the pressure, and I don't think did he have a sack? I can't remember.
He had a sack. I think that people are going to look at the sack and say, oh yeah, he had a great game. Go back and rewatch that play. That sack was created by Alton Robinson.
Agreed.
Alton Robinson, coming off the edge, was there. The quarterback basically stepped right into Adams, who got credit for the sack, but Robinson was the guy with all the pressure who forced that play. Yeah. So, I mean, Miles Adams.
I love to see that, and that's one of the things we talked about in the offseason is total improved play across the entire line, because each player affects other players. It's not all in a vacuum for these guys.
Yeah, Robinson looked great. Miles Adams had the sack. He looked competent. And like, he was a guy that I really wanted to see get more playing time at the end of last year. Like, get him in there. Let's see what he's got. We know he's an interior pass rusher, and the team needs that. And so for him to show up in a game in the preseason where the team will actually look at it and go, hey, maybe we do need another interior pass rusher. You got guys like Collier that probably are going to start the year on injured reserve.
If Collier's out, you put Adams in. Yeah, I
think so. Yeah.
Josh Jones, I thought, had another good game, and he blew up that screen. Reminded me of KJ Wright when he did that. He read that thing quick, made it surefire tackle behind the line of scrimmage. That was one of the best plays of the game, I thought.
One of the things that kept coming to mind when we were watching this game, and they kept making a big deal about Roquan Smith not playing and not being there for the Bears and all of that. And then I'm watching Josh Jones just make plays and be in the right position and just look like a guy that should be on the field. And I'm thinking, yeah, that Jamal Adams, Roquan Smith deal, can we just make that trade happen? Like, get Josh Jones on the actual field by trading away Adams and get Roquan Smith in there to fix the linebacker depth with an all-pro. Like, do it. Just straight up do it. I would have no problem with it.
Yeah, that would be crazy if that happened. I mean, it's really, you'd be giving one up for the other. I think that works well salary-wise, and it works well player equivalency-wise. We might have to give up a pick, but it's not going to be an early pick. It's going to be like a 5th rounder plus Jamal Adams. I think that would be a good solid trade. I really do. I think a guy like Josh Jones gives you the confidence that your play at safety is not going to drop off. Mm-hmm. All right, one last positive for me, and I want to just give a hand to all the players who didn't play in this game, because you will not be associated with the crap show that you saw at all, and you can sleep at night knowing that you had no involvement whatsoever, and you probably actually gained a roster spot potentially just because you weren't involved. Pete was not happy. I mean, as much as you can look at Pete in his post-game press conferences when we lose and stuff, and he's kind of, he puts a positive spin on everything, he was just not happy with the way things went at all. Disappointed in the tackling, disappointed in the coverage, disappointed in his special teams play. He made excuses for Geno Smith. It was just awful. And so, can we just move on to the next game already?
Yeah. I mean, he is, he was unhappy. I would have been more disturbed if he was happy, because this is the type of game where even a completely positive guy like Pete Carroll, you can't fake it. You can't come out and go, yeah, this was great. We did some good things, because anybody watching is like, this team looked like trash.
It looks like it was not a well-coacted team.
And if you're trying to put a positive spin on that, no one's taking it seriously. For him to come out and just be like, and just straight up show he wasn't happy. He didn't like what the team did. He didn't like how they played. He didn't like where they were mentally.
Let me ask this, Keith. Where is the team mentally when you spend all off season getting ready for a season? You spend 3 weeks in training camp. You're prepared as you can be. This is the game where you like to show. We talked about preseason used to be 4 games. Now it's 3. So this is the game where you really kind of wanted your regular rotation guys to come in and have a good effect on a game, and just completely no show mentally in this game. What is that? Does that say anything about how they prepare, where they're at, how they're coached?
No. I think that would be putting too much emphasis on a preseason game in which guys like Tyler Lockett literally played 3 plays. So they suited up, we're out there ready to be there, and they played 3 plays and then got told they were sitting. Lockett, Metcalf, Gabe Jackson, guys like that, Darrell Taylor, I don't think.
But the guys that were ready and were out there, I mean, why such the mental lapses that we saw, and just not ready to come and play a football game when your life is on the line?
Because I think it's just one of the, it's a moment, right? When you're got a guy like Bo Melton who's out there, he knows like this is his chance. He performs well here, he makes the roster, and if he doesn't, he doesn't. And the moment just became too big for him. I think that's what happened with Cade Johnson.
You saw that with Cade Johnson on camera, that the exact moment when you know that your football career is literally over. Because when that ball went through his arms and behind him, through his legs, he just put his hands on his head on the turf, and just it was heartbreaking. I'll be completely honest. It was heartbreaking to see a kid go through that moment. Now, he did bounce back, had some receptions later, but that's tough to overcome, that play right there.
It's just so visible. It's going to hang in the coaches' minds when it comes time to make the decision. Who are they putting on the roster?
And he probably wouldn't even be a return guy in regular season.
Nope.
So that's hard. That's hard.
But it's still going to hang in their mind. They're trying to make, do you put Cade Johnson or do you put Penny Hart in there? And you remember Penny Hart's big reception, and you remember Cade Johnson and muffing a punt. And your instinct says Penny Hart, even though Penny Hart had a bad special teams penalty as well. So it's not, but that doesn't stand out. It's the big play. It's the big fumble that will stand out. And so, yeah, it's going to be hard to overcome that. He needs to come out in the third preseason game and really show up.
And he's got an opportunity, unless he doesn't make cuts this week that are coming down the road. All right, let's get out of here. I'm anxious to kind of get this behind us and move forward. We'll be back next week with a game preview. Dallas Cowboys, Seahawks at Dallas. Seattle only had one preseason game at home this year, and then it's a couple weeks off, and then we kick off the season. So we're about three and a half weeks out right now. 3 weeks, I guess.
Mm-hmm. We'll be back with the we'll have that preview, and then when we come back, we're gonna do our 53-man roster prediction, where Bill and I are guaranteed to have a whole bunch of things wrong, but it's always fun.
We're pretty good at that. We're pretty good. Save one or two spots, I think we're going to be pretty decent at that. We always seem to be. And then what I think that we're going to have an issue with a problem where we might be completely different would be the prediction show. So we'll come back right before the season, before we preview the first game of the year. We'll have a prediction show, and that's going to be interesting. We're usually within a game or two each year. This year, I'm not sure, because I'm not sure where I'm going to be. I mean, it's kind of crazy. I think the roster is worthy of 10, 11 wins, really, if Russell Wilson was here. But he's not. And so we're down like 6-7 wins right now in my brain. And I'm going to have to go look at that schedule and map out every game. And it's going to be hard to put wins on the
I'm looking at hey, we're going to have to go through and look at wins and losses game by game and all of that in order to figure it out. But I'm looking at Geno Smith as a starting quarterback and thinking that's a 4-win team.
Yeah. And just because he just doesn't give your team a chance to win at the end of the game.
He doesn't give your team, and he's not the guy who, you kept it close, you didn't make the big mistake, you're within one score, you get the ball at the end of the game. And Wilson would run this team down the field and score a touchdown, and they'd walk away with the victory. Geno Smith isn't going to do that.
Yeah. I have zero confidence that would happen.
He's going to go 3 and out, punt the ball, and you're going to lose.
We're going to have, and I said this last show, I think, we're going to win, or we're going to lose a lot of one-run games this year.
Mm-hmm.
Or not run, but score.
Yeah, you made the baseball analogy. They're going to lose a lot of one-run games. And to finish the baseball analogy, it's because they don't have a good closer. Yeah, gotta have the closer.
Yeah, that's true. All right, let's get out of here. Find Keith on Twitter. Well, you know where to find us. Good night. Yep. Anyway, we'll see you next week. Go Hawks.
Go Hawks.
Seahawks Playbook Podcast listeners, thanks for joining us for another edition of the show. You can find us on Twitter. Bill is at NWSeahawk. Keith is at Myers NFL. And the show is at Hawks Playbook. You can listen and subscribe to the show at SeahawksPlaybook.com.